What up, Fight World? It's your boy Ego, and I'm back with some more boxing. Now, I had to do this video. I really felt compelled from the bottom of my heart to do this. And if you watch my channel, you'll know that I'm one of the most consistent people on YouTube, in my personal opinion. And that's consistent in terms of I don't care what you are, race, green, white, yellow, purple, black, white, it doesn't matter. Age, it doesn't matter. Height, doesn't matter. Weight division, doesn't matter. At the end of the day, I'm going to give everybody a fair shake. Of course, like anybody else, I have fighters that I watch more than others, or I favor their style, or whatever the situation is. But I still give the game a fair shake. There's been plenty of videos I made where there's a fighter that I like, someone like Adrian Broner. I think he's a rising talent. But I also express when I don't agree with something he does. And one of the things that I criticize Adrian Broner, and you don't have to take my word for it. If you're so inclined, check my page, go back, check the history books, and the videos are up. There's no way to change them once they're already up. They're already up for you guys to hear and can't be altered. So it's already set in stone. Whatever I say, I'm a man of my word. I stand by my word, and that's just how it goes. But as far as Adrian Broner, during the Vicente Escobedo days, when he was planning on moving up to 135, he couldn't make weight. And he didn't even try to make weight. And I expressed then, and I'll say it again for those of you guys who might not have been following me at that time, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the fighter with a contracted weight and then not necessarily even trying to make that weight. Adrian Broner seemed very lackadaisical, like I'll just pay the fine. And he ended up really destroying Escobedo, I think, fifth round stoppage, or maybe a corner stoppage, I forgot. But it takes away from the win just because the situation. So fast forward to the future, I will say the same thing for Chavez Jr. Now, some people want to get butthurt and complain like I'm picking on Chavez Jr. I have no problem with him. I really respect his father as one of the greats. And it doesn't have nothing to do with Chavez Jr. It has something to do with his actions. This young man has a problem staying focused and being disciplined in a sport that requires nothing less. He tested positive for a diuretic like in 2009 in the Andy Lee training camp, which at the time was probably one of his bigger fights to date. Andy Lee is a stiff competition. He got a DUI. I think he might have been in Florida, Miami, or somewhere. Got a DUI in that training camp. Right after, he had his biggest fight against Sergio Martinez, a fight where a lot of diehard fans said he's going to beat. Some people said Martinez was going to school him, possibly stop him, blah, blah, blah. But either way, it was his biggest fight on paper, and he didn't rise to the occasion. He had Martinez hurt, obviously, in the 12th round, in a shocking turn of events because he was getting his ass whooped and outclassed for 11 and a half rounds. But he almost pulled the trigger, but he couldn't. So we know in the sport of boxing, almost doesn't cut it. So I don't feel overall, in the entirety, he had a good showing. He was much bigger than Sergio Martinez. He couldn't cut off the ring. And after the fight, after he pretty much got embarrassed for a majority of the fight and almost redeemed himself in the 12th round, we later find out that he tested positive for marijuana. And then they charged him with hefty fines. Some people were complaining, and he was trying to fight it. So he's been MIA. He was suspended. He was out of the sport since that fight. That was last year in September during Mexican Independence Day weekend when Canelo fought Josecito, if I'm not mistaken. Since then, Canelo has fought 2 times in tough opponents. He fought 2 undefeated fighters. Canelo fought Austin Trout, undefeated fighter, in April. Then he turned around and fought Mayweather, undefeated fighter, in September 14th. Meanwhile, Chavez has been on a long layoff because of his suspension, and he finally gets a fight with Brian Vera. Keep in mind, Chavez Jr. was fighting at 160. Then, because he gained so much weight in his off season, he was clearly over 200 pounds. I did a video about it, and he looked fat. He looked really big, something he's been criticized for before, similar to Ricky Hatton. He balloons up in weight. He feels he can't cut all that weight and go right back down to 160. So they make the fight at 168. And guess what happens? Chavez Jr. can't even make that weight. So as it sits right now, this fight with Brian Vera is taking place at 173. And we're supposed to respect this. Like, I mean, I have no problem with Chavez Jr. He's an exciting fighter. I will continue to watch his fights. But this is not respectable. This demeanor in a sport like boxing is not respectable. You got guys in boxing or even MMA who really dedicate their lives to their crafts. They spend time away from home and from family. They go to different cities to train while their family, like Robert Guerrero, watched the All Access when he was preparing for Mayweather. He's in Vegas, his family's in Gilroy, and he has to miss his son's baseball games and talk to his wife who survived cancer via the telephone and Skype and stuff like that. And then you got someone like Chavez Jr. who is really, really famous and has been getting title shots and more notoriety, I would say, based on who he is. The fact that he is part of a legacy since his dad is a legend and an icon in the sport of boxing and definitely in Mexico as well. And at first I was like, okay, this kid, who is he? But then I seen like, okay, this kid's big. He has good body shots and good body work, and he looks strong. And then it's things like this that make it really hard for me to take him seriously because I don't even think he takes the sport seriously. He really seems spoiled. And again, boxing is very disciplined. And then this motherfucker had the audacity to make this statement. This is what he said. He's basically trying to justify why he's fighting Brian Vera at 173 now instead of 168, even though they're both from the 160-pound division and 168 was a stretch. Now Brian Vera has to be at even more of a weight disadvantage because Chavez looks huge. And this is what he had to say. This is not a championship fight, so it could take place at 168, 170. There doesn't have to be a specific weight. People criticize me because I lost to Sergio Martinez, but nobody criticizes Mayweather for training at 2 o'clock in the morning like myself. But of course he wins, so they don't criticize him. I think I showed that I have discipline because I've always made the weight for my fights. I fought the best, and I almost knocked out one of the best pound-for-pound fighters, and he's referring to Sergio Martinez. This is a comment from Chavez Jr. I can't respect this. I'm not even trying to go in like this, but this is ridiculous. Like, how in God's green earth, how in the fuck can you compare your work ethic to Floyd Mayweather? Floyd Mayweather, a person who's been a dedicated force. He takes 2 years off from the sport, fights an elite fighter like Marquez, and outclasses him for 12 rounds and even knocks him down. This is levels above what Chavez Jr. has showed us in terms of his discipline. So bringing up Mayweather, out of all people, someone who's known to train hard. If you know anything about Mayweather, if you know about the doghouse, he fights with the heat up and no AC, and they're all sweating and they fight to the death. It sounds like they get it in and really take it seriously. And Chavez Jr. is really trying to compare anything he does to to Floyd Mayweather. I just find that very funny and ironic that he's even trying to make the analogy or the comparison to what he does. At the end of the day, Mayweather has had his own personal demons, the whole I'm going to jail after the Cotto fight, but he buckled down, did what he had to do, made weight, beat Cotto convincingly, and did his debt to society and then moved on. Versus Chavez Jr., who seems very spoiled. Like, if you really look at the comparison, the fact that he used Mayweather is even more ironic because both fighters come from a fight family. However, Mayweather is not using his father or his Uncle Roger or Jeff Mayweather's legacy to establish who he is. In fact, he's surpassed them. He's done more for the sport and in the sport than all three of them. Not to say anything because Roger Mayweather was a good fighter, but he's still done more. He's become the face of boxing, and he's really surpassed what they've done. I mean, I don't think anyone can dispute that, and that's not taking away from anything that they've done positive, but he's really surpassed what they've done in terms of money, bringing a focus back into the sport of boxing, being the highest paid athlete, his skill set, his defense. I mean, he showed that. But Chavez Jr. is someone who has always remained in the shadow of his father, and I don't think he's doing a good job of being the Brandon Lee to the Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee is obviously an icon. He's a cult classic, and I think Brandon Lee, his time on Earth, he did a good job of separating himself from his dad's shadow and kind of started working on his own legacy until his life was prematurely taken when he was filming The Crow. But I don't think Chavez Jr. is doing that. I think he's definitely in his father's shadow, and he makes it hard for people to take him seriously. So I feel bad for Brian Vera because he's going in with a severe weight advantage or disadvantage, excuse me. He's going in with a severe weight disadvantage against Chavez Jr., who looks huge. Chavez Jr. obviously is a strong kid. He's good and relentless with the body attack. It looks like he inherited his father's chin. He got his pop's chin because it looks like he can take a shot. He showed that in the Sergio Martinez shot or Sergio Martinez fight. Again, it's just a little bit hard to take Chavez Jr. seriously when it's one thing after another. Your biggest fight in the world, the biggest fight on your resume, and the fight that people were saying you can't win, you decide to smoke weed during it. Or the biggest fight before that, Andy Lee, you're getting DUIs. And again, comparing yourself to Floyd Mayweather doesn't do any justice too, because it shows on the HBO 24/7 for Sergio Martinez how you were acting. Mayweather might train late, but he still goes to the gym. He's not doing these makeshift workouts in the living room and moving couches. He's not sleeping till 5 p.m. from all accesses and 24/7s that I've seen. He's not doing those things. He's not smoking weed and testing positive multiple times. He's not waking up at 5 p.m. in his underwear and not listening to his trainer and coach, his dad or whatnot. But these are all things that Chavez Jr. has done. Now, if you don't like what I said in this video, fuck you, because everything I said was accurate. That's really all I got to say. As always, hate, comment, or subscribe. Till next video's Ego, signing off.